everyone. Welcome to tonight's program about Brooklyn and hip hop. I'm Marcia Eli from the Brooklyn Public Library's Center for Brooklyn History and the library's Arts and Culture team, BPL Presents. This is the first of two Center for Brooklyn History programs that dig into the borough's hip hop history. The second one in 2 weeks is with Milk D, Daddy O, and King of Chill. And we'll put a link in the chat so you can find out more. And I also want you to know that the Brooklyn Public Library is celebrating hip hop's 50th anniversary with programs all year. And we'll put another link in the chat that tells you what's coming up. But tonight we kick everything off by welcoming DJ Clark Kent, whose legacy and contributions are what this program is about. It's going to take two moderators to do this justice. They are Doctors Will Fulton and Patrick Rivers, who co-authored the book 33 and a Third, Camp Lo's Uptown Saturday Night. Will is professor of music at LaGuardia Community College. He formerly worked in the music business as A&R and producer. He's contributed chapters to collections on Prince, Beyonce, and hip hop history, and his latest book, which he is currently working on, is about rap records in New York City. Patrick is an ethnomusicologist and associate professor of music at the University of New Haven. He researches and teaches the processes of recorded music and the impact of recordings on aesthetics and consumption. You can find his writing in the Oxford Handbook of Hip Hop Music Studies. So before I hand it over to them, I want to invite you to share your questions for DJ Clark Kent. Just type them in the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen throughout the program, and we'll take as many as there's time for towards the end. With that, I am totally honored to welcome Will Fulton, Patrick Rivers, and DJ Clark Kent. Thank you all so much for being here. I turn it over to you.
All right, it's Brooklyn in the house. The early history of hip hop is appropriately narrated through the streets, playgrounds, and apartments of the Bronx. But BK, the thoroughest borough, featured early pioneers of its own and is recognized as the cultural home base for numerous high-profile and brilliant artists that represent the culture to the fullest. Our guest, DJ Clark Kent, is Brooklyn hip-hop. He lived the culture as a child, harnessed his talents as he came of age, and has spent his adult life, and I quote him, doing dope shit. But that dope shit has been integral to the careers of many of our favorite artists and to the flourishing of hip-hop music and culture around the world. Let's give it up and let's welcome DJ Clark Kent.
Thank you. I think I'm going to take you on the road to introduce me wherever I go.
We can talk about it. We can talk about it. We can go out. All right, so let's get started. In 1987, KRS-One rapped, during the Bridge Wars. Manhattan keeps on making it, Brooklyn keeps on taking it, Bronx keeps creating it, and Queens keeps on faking it. From your perspective, how should we understand Brooklyn's place in early hip-hop history?
Well, the funny part is when he says Brooklyn keeps on taking it, because I'm so Brooklyn, I didn't take it like we were taking anything from anybody else. I just thought he meant like we're a very, very tough borough and we will take whatever from wherever else. But if people really, really do the knowledge, like we didn't take anything from anywhere. We had our own playing in the park moments and our own feeling of what it felt like to be outside and, bringing out speakers and bringing out turntables. So we didn't take anything, Queens didn't take anything. They had the Disco Twins. We had Master D, we had Von K, we had Flowers. We had guys that were cemented in Brooklyn since the 60s. So we didn't look at it like we were taking anything. Things that became something else, like when rapping started, it started in the Bronx and then we got rappers, But everything has to start somewhere. But we weren't taking, we just were playing our part in the game. And he was beefing, and I'm not mad at him. But he did paint Brooklyn in a very, very beautiful light. He didn't make us look crazy.
So you brought up Grandmaster Flowers, and
Yes, the best mixing DJ ever.
Okay, so a little bit about that, because I know that you have specific memories, and maybe you could weave that into, a little bit, if you want to talk about some of your youthful memories, like your first memories of music in general and DJ culture. You have such a fascinating background as well, because your mom was an opera singer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom was an opera singer, and my grandmother, that's who we lived with when I was super young. And actually, I lived with her up until I was like 19. Mm-hmm. But she had this stereo, and she had a lot of records, and my mother had a lot of records. And at around 5 or 6, I learned how to use the stereo. And once I learned how to use the stereo, I would put on this record that my grandmother loved called Happy Landings by the Miracles. I would put it on when she came through the door from work, just to see her get happy and excited about it. And I was like, I didn't, like when you look back, you're like, well, you practically were DJing, but you didn't even know what DJing was. I just know I was trying to make my grandmother happy, because she's the most important person I've ever met in my life. But so I was doing that, like, and then one day I'm at my uncle's house, and he has 2 turntables, and I'm just like, what is this? And he was like, it's a DJ set. But my uncle's a guy who used to go to clubs. Him and his wife him and my aunt used to go to clubs all the time. So they were in Studio 54, Leviticus, Bap House. They were in those clubs in the 70s. And he had a DJ set because he wanted what they had in the club. And I was like, can you teach me how to DJ? And he didn't know how to DJ. So he just had the set. So he was like, you could try it, figure it out. So I'm 9 figuring out DJing.
Wow.
And then I figured it out, so I figured it out at 9. By 10, I'm really trying to tell everybody that I could DJ. People aren't paying attention. I'm getting laughed at, because when you're trying to do something that grown men do and you're a kid, it doesn't actually make sense to many people. But by the time I was 11, about to turn 12, that summer, I went to Lincoln Terrace Park, where I knew Flowers was DJing that day. And Pete DJ Jones was also there. And Pete DJ Jones knew that I was the kid from up the street who played music. He told Flowers, he was like, that's the kid from up on Union Street who plays records. And he was looking at me like, he really played. And he was like, yeah. So he goes, yo, you want to play a record? I say, yes. He goes, okay, go pick one. I went to his crates and I picked up about 30 records. And he turns around and he goes, you picked, like, all of those records? And I was like, yes, I do. And he goes, okay, go. And he lets me play a record, and he goes, keep going. So he let me play for like 40 minutes at a park jam. Like, to me, that was the signing to my contract of life. Like, you're going to be a DJ forever. So.
And that was like 11 or 12?
I was 11, about to be 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And Flowers, you've mentioned this before, that Flowers is just one of the best you've ever seen, or the best you've ever seen. I mean,
Flowers, to me, Grandmaster Flowers, actually, who's the first person with the name Grandmaster.
Yeah,
he was the best mixing DJ, like, to date, that I've ever heard.
Wow.
Yeah, I give him that, and I give Larry Levan the best party DJ, or best club DJ I've ever heard was Larry Levan. Yeah.
Wow. So the Paradise Garage.
Yeah.
That era, yeah. It's interesting too, because when you think about Levan and you think about Heartbeat, and how Heartbeat extended into so many different hip hop versions and instantly became a break and everything.
Yeah.
Patrick, I think this next one might be yours.
Yeah. So to keep going with this era, so you're getting started on the turntables, from the whole culture around you, when did you recognize something culturally was changing, or something was emerging in Brooklyn that would eventually be called hip hop in the early 80s?
When it became more and more park jams. And then the mic got open. When the mic got open and people were just saying things, but then all of a sudden they were saying things that started to rhyme, and then they started saying things that had a rhythm. I guess the rhythm and the poetry, rap, R-A-P, rhythm and poetry, started to happen. And yes, you knew it started somewhere else, and you heard of the Hercs. Like my uncle was a friend of Kool Herc back in the days, and so like that, I met him when I was 10 or 11, but it didn't connect that I was going to do this 1-2 thing. But yeah, like you started to hear things be a little different, and then you recognize that the way you're playing the records became different, and you're not just playing records to play them. Now you're playing records looking for the best section of the record, and you're bringing it back and forth, and you're trying to extend what would be called breaks at some point.
Yeah. So if you're going to go, like, if you're going to put like a plaque somewhere in Brooklyn, like this is the park, which park would you say was like the spot? Or parks or multiple parks? Like
there's a few. Lincoln Terrace, Tompkins, LG, with Master and Von K. They used to destroy LG. There's a park on the corner of Park in Brooklyn Avenue, where the Children's Museum is, that park. My boy who was part of a rap crew, part of a crew called Jam One, he lived across the street from the park. So every time somebody wanted to play there, they damn near used his set every time he was there. Like, his name is JP. He actually turned out to be me and Dana Dane's manager back in the days. But JP was the leader of Jam One. Vandy C used to play there. I played there. I played Wingate Park. I played Boys and Girls. Like, you played damn near every park in Brooklyn. Vanderveer, Farragut. Like, if you wanted to be known, you had to go and play where everybody was playing. So like, I would go to park jams and just tell them, like, yo, I was pretty rude when I was young. I would go to park jams, go to the DJ booth and be like, yo, I'm better than y'all.
Step off.
Let me on. Let me on the set. I'm telling you, I'm better than y'all. It was wrong. Yeah. But you know, when you say that to somebody who's 20, 21, 22, they're looking at you like you crazy, and then they challenge you, and then you show and prove. Now the word starts to get around. So every park jam that I showed up, they were just like, oh, that's the kid from Crown Heights. That's the young boy who played at, you know, and it just started to spiral.
So, and then there's that pivotal moment.
But wait, if you ask me where I'm putting that plaque,
we're putting the plaque.
Lincoln Terrace, because I got to play there. That's the first park jam I ever played.
I wanted to take a moment and talk about like how the relationship with Dana Dane came about and everything. And you know, I know it was a while ago, right? But how that all came about and how that came together, right? Because that's obviously had to be a huge learning experience to be out on the road and everything.
So I was already being DJ Clark Kent in New York City and being hired to play in a bunch of places. And I got hired to DJ at Washington Irving for a talent show. And Dana's record had just came out. Nightmares had just came out. And he came to the show. He came to the school to perform. It wasn't even like 2 weeks that it was out, but it came out and people liked it. So he came to the school to perform, and his DJ wasn't with him. So he asked me to drop the record for him. And I dropped it. And while he's rapping, I'm doing drops on it. I don't know. I just felt there's feeling here, there's feeling here, there's feeling here. And at the end of the show, he was like, yo, you just knew to do that? And I was like, well, I just felt my way through it. So, you know, switch numbers. And then like 2 shows went by that he did with his DJ, and then his DJ wasn't as available. So he called me. He was like, yo, you want to do some shows together? And I was like, okay, cool. So we sat down and we talked about doing a show, and I listened because I had never done touring rap shows before. I'd done rap group shows with little groups that I was part of back when I was young, but like, this guy's got a record, so it's a different thing. So when we talked, he had his idea of what he wanted to do, and I listened. And I was like, okay, I can do what you want me to do, but what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about, and then he was like, oh, hell yeah. And I think what happened was he didn't look at me like I'm just some guy who DJs. He actually looked at me like, nah, that's the DJ Clark Kent who plays almost every club in New York City. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we get together, it should be a meeting of the minds instead of I'm just paying him to put some records on. And he let it be that. And because it was that, we had really great shows. And yeah, from the first show we did together was at the Rooftop, and he realized at the Rooftop, like, Clark's a little more famous than me in here because I played at the Rooftop. So when we walk in, everybody's going, yo, Clark, yo, Clark, yo, Clark. And Dana's standing next to me, and they're not even like, and he's like, yo, you like famous here? I was like, nah, I play here. Like, I play all the clubs. And so that first night, it was like such a good reaction for him that he was like, yeah, we out of here. And when we went on tour, it was just about having fun and making sure that the crowds were happy.
So I'd like to read, if I may, a quick quote from DJ Scratch, who posted this picture.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah. So with this picture, there's a lot I would like to, if we could leave this picture up just for a moment, because there's a lot I'd like to, I think we'd like to talk about it. It's a great picture. Is one of those, says 1,000 words. But a quick, DJ Scratch posted this picture and said, DJ Clark Kent live at Union Square. Red Alert was the main DJ, and he would let Clark party rock and cut shit up at 1 o'clock in the morning. By 1988, Clark Kent was the undisputed club king of New York. So I guess my question is, first of all, I mean, is it as small and tight in there as it looks? It looks like you're really, as a DJ, you got no elbow room at all.
Well,
but yeah.
Well, let me address that.
Yeah.
That DJ set was at the side of the stage. Red Alert was in the booth.
Oh, okay.
So that was put there for performers that were going to perform. So every week at 1 o'clock, he just let me go off. And before I go any further, I literally look at Red Alert as probably one of the most important DJs in my career, because he gave me 1 o'clock at Union Square, and I used to go off. Like, every week they knew I was going to go off. Like, if you see in the corner behind me is Cutmaster DC, and he would be like, why can't I get that spot? And he gave me that spot, and he didn't feel a ways about it. He just selflessly gave me that 1 o'clock spot. And I literally became, off of that spot, I became the guy that played every downtown club. So, I love Red Alert, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for him. But it's based off of what he did right there. Like
the radio too, right? Because there's also the radio that on the Goes Berserk show. There's a lot of nights that he was, that featured you, right?
No, actually, I never played on his show because I was on Marley Marl's show against him.
Gotcha. All right. Well, okay. Well, there's another question. There's so many questions.
Yeah, but so that space was tight, and every week I went off, and I'm very honored when another DJ speaks of me in that light. But me and Scratch grew up together, like, he's literally from my block. We lived on the same block. We used to DJ at my house since we were children. You know what I'm saying? I mean, children, 11 and 12. Like, he's a year behind me. Like he learned DJing right next to me.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of different things, obviously, we want to discuss, and there's, some things we certainly won't even get to. But the one thing that I was talking about with Patrick is that, like when we talk about multi-hyphenates, when somebody says he's a singer, actor, or whatever, when we talk about Clark Kent, you were writer for The Source, you were an A&R, you were a DJ judge, you were doing so many different things. You were club DJ, you were doing so many different things at the same time before we even get to the question of production. And if you think about the fact that, by 1988, the DMC championships, that there was an art to DJing that had developed to the point that people could judge it, right? That to turntablism, I should say, not to DJing, but to turntablism.
Actually, it's DJing.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to specifically hip hop DJing. I was trying to say.
No, it's DJing.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
I've never subscribed to being a hip hop DJ. I'm not a hip hop DJ. I'm a DJ.
Right.
Whatever kind of music I'm playing that night just becomes what I'm playing. But I love music. So I'm gonna play all kinds of music. And if you think of what they consider hip hop, right? 50% of the breaks came from music that had nothing to do with rap.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what are we really talking about? We're just talking about DJing.
Okay, all right. That's a good way to think about it, that it's a DJ, that DJing is the core, right?
Right.
In a sense,
If you
right?
can't DJ, like,
What do you? Actually, speak about that transition. So you start off as a DJ. By the late '80s, you have the SP 1200s out, the MPC 60s dropping in 1988. You make this transition to production, but what got you started, and what made you that first moment you want to make that transition from being a DJ to now producing or beat making and producing records?
um, it's funny because when you're a DJ and you're playing all over the place and you see drum machines come out, you get a drum machine and it doesn't translate until something says, oh, you can do something else here. And I went to a session with Dana when he started his album, and Herbie Lovebug had an SP 1200 there and he was using it. And I was just watching. And one day he goes, yo, if you come earlier than us, you could use the 1200. You could mess with it if you want. And I was like, okay. So I learned how to make beats quick. And I was also friends with Molly. So I would go to Molly's house and watch him. But the first time I got to use a machine was in one of those sessions where I went early, and like right after like 2 or 3 times, whatever money I got, I went and bought an SP 1200. And I wanted to be able to do that and then go back and go, listen. And I did. And it was because of Herbie Lovebug. He let me use that 1200. And Molly used to let us be in the crib, and I would watch him and the way he's thinking creatively. To me, Molly's the father of all rap producers. Molly's the father of all rap producers. Yes, there was a Herbie Lovebug. Yes, there was a whole bunch of other guys at that moment, the Larry Smiths, but when it comes to that rap, that boom bap rap,
Chopping
production, Molly Ma is the father of that. And I'm just a child of Molly Ma. But I would say I'm a child of Molly Ma and Herbie Lovebug, because Herbie, I watched him, and that's how I learned, by seeing what he did. And then he's the reason I bought a drum machine, because like I'm going to be with this Dana guy. So let me see if I can make something for him one day.
And I wanted to think too about then at some point we have this great story, if you're willing to share it, talking a little bit about how you and MC Light connected briefly in that moment. Patrick, do you have a picture there? Because I was thinking about that. I mean, it's just such a perfect Brooklyn story, because. But anyway, if you wouldn't mind, because I remember asking you before if you were producing people at before Jay-Z, and at first you said no, and then you said wait a minute, and then this is what came up. So
I want to be clear. This picture of me and MC Light is not a romantic picture. I did not buy her that rose. We just got, that's my homie right there. And so like I didn't even know she was MCing. Like her name was Lana. She used to be in the club. She used to hang out with a girl named Juliet back in the days. And she was at Union Square one night, and she was just like, Clark, I want to make a record. And in my mind, I'm going, your brother is Milk, and your other brother is Giz. Why are you asking me this? And it's like they didn't take her seriously. So she just was like, I want to make a record. I want to make a record. And at that time, I had a DX drum machine. Like I said, you had drum machines, but you didn't know you could. So I like at 5 o'clock in the morning after Union Square, I took her to my house. It was her and Juliet came to my house. It was 5:30 in the morning, and I made a beat on the DX, and she rapped, I Cram to Understand You. That, which was her first record. Now, I didn't make her first record, but the demo of it was done in my house at 5:30 in the morning. Wow. It was wild. But she's literally like, yeah, she's MC Light to everybody, but she was Lana to me first. We did not even think that she was seriously talking about rapping until she got to my house, and I was like, oh shit, you really rap.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic, because then the demo goes from your house to and then they have the First Priority Records label on St. John's. So it's just like it was a Brooklyn business, and it's
so technically, what's your first credit? What's your first placement?
My first credit was a remix on a group called Seriously Fine, but the record only went to white label. Mm-hmm. And then maybe weeks behind that was my second credit that actually happened. So I call it my first credit, was the remix to Spread My Wings.
By Troop. Yeah.
And that went number one.
Yeah.
That sold a lot of records.
Definitely the go-go. There's a little
go-go drums, the go-go drum rolls.
Yeah, it's definitely popping right there.
Yeah.
And Pat, you want to talk a little bit about the
yeah. So you get into you got your getting your production credit under your belt as you transition into the 1990s, but at some point in the early 90s, you also transitioned to the industry and become an A&R. Now, talk about that transition. Again, we talk about from DJing to producing. Now, from producing to being an A&R.
Well, that first real credit, Spread My Wings, was on Atlantic Records where Merlin Bob worked. And I was already friends with Merlin Bob. And he was friends with Timmy Regisford. And we were like friends because we were all on WBLS. And one day Timmy calls me and he goes, yo, man, you need to be doing A&R. And I'm like, okay. Now, Timmy works at Motown Records. And he goes, you need to be doing A&R. So the first thing in my mind goes, well, I guess I'm going to go to work at Motown. He goes, no, go over to Epic and work for Hank Caldwell. And I was like, how can you send me to Epic? So Monday morning, I go to Epic. I got a job with Hank Caldwell, and I'm going to be A&R. 4 days later, Timmy calls me and says, yeah, nah, quit. You're gonna go to Atlantic and work with Merlin and Sylvia. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? I just got a job and it's actually really paying me real money. Like, I don't have to do nothing crazy in the street no more. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got a human being job. You know what I'm saying? My bills are gonna get paid. And he was like, yeah, no, you're gonna go over here and do this. And I followed what Timmy said because he's the guy who got me to go to a record company. Timmy is the guy who said, you need to be doing A&R. Mm-hmm. He sent me to my first A&R job, told me to quit, sent me to my next A&R job. And that became me working at Atlantic and East West and helping with tons of records.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how did your DJ background help you with as an A&R, or did it assist you in terms of now you got to seek out talent?
It definitely assisted because at that time I was on the radio with Molly Ma. So I'm breaking records at that time. And Timmy's going, if anybody could see what you see before everybody else hears it, they should be doing A&R. He's like, because you're playing records that no one knows about off the rip. Because every week that we did the show, it would be 40, 50 people waiting downstairs with their new record. When you get all of these new records, there's a bunch of people who's like, yo, I'll give you $1,000. And one thing I never did was take money because I'm not going to play a record I don't like. So I was like, keep your money. If I like it, you'll hear it. If you don't, you won't. So I was picking records out of 40, 50 records every weekend going, oh, I like this. Okay, I like that. Okay, I like this. And then like Timmy was listening going, you're picking great records. If you can do that, as soon as somebody gives you a record, maybe you can do it before they get to making the records. And so that's what being a DJ and being able to play on the radio and being able to hear records way before everybody else did to help me become an A&R.
So one of the things that surfaces in that era is a number of remixes that have this rapper that people didn't know at the time named Jay-Z.
Yeah.
So how did that relationship, come up? I mean, how did that relationship come about between you and Jay, and how did it become to the point that you were bringing him in to, put him on these, different remixes? Different records?
Well, he was Jazzo's partner. Everyone knows that. And this is the 80s. And,
that's a good pick.
They used to be at Fresh Gordon's house. And Fresh Gordon was one of my friends. He was also managed by JP as well. He was producing Salt Pepper. Like he was one of those guys. He was also producing Jazz. So I would be there and Jazz would come and he'd do songs. And one day I heard a song and he had this other guy on it. And I was like, who's that? He was like, that's Jay. I was like, let me meet him. He takes me to the projects. He brings him out. And I just asked him, yo, can you rap? And he goes bananas. And I just was thinking to myself, I'm literally looking at the best MC ever. And, so time goes by and New Music Seminar happens and I'm DJing at Mars and Jazz is coming to perform and Jay's with him. So I ended up dropping the records for him. So after that, I might have dropped records for him at like 5 other shows, but I'm still looking at this guy going, he's amazing. Then I get a job. So when I get this job, the only artist I want to sign is Jazz and Jay-Z. Because I'm thinking they're the best. So I reach out to Jazz. I was like, yo, where's Jay-Z? And he's like, yeah, I don't know where he is. I was like, you gotta find him so I could like try to get y'all a record deal. Or I'm over here at Atlantic Records. So the quest for Jay-Z happens. And then Fade from the Shirt Kings is actually who found him for me. And when he found him, I was like, yo, please come to New York. Let's try to do this music thing and get this record deal going. He was like, nah, I'm good. And I was just like, what do you mean you're good? He was like, yeah, no, I'm good. And then one day he comes up and, you know, we go in the studio. It's me, him, and Jazz, and we're working on stuff. And he's telling me about Sauce Money. And when Sauce Money comes over, he's amazing too. So I'm just like, okay, we're going to call ourselves the Hard Pack. And that was it. We were going to be the Hard Pack. We were going to make records. And then Jazz disappears. And then Jay would come over and he would be by himself and a record would get done. And Jay would come over again. He's by himself. Another record would get done. So when I started doing more and more remixes, I was like, I'm just going to put you on the remixes and hand them in. And if they use it, cool. But I literally thought he was the best thing I've ever heard. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted everybody else to feel that way. And, you know, look where we are now.
Incredible. Thank you for thank you for making these records. But you know, this was the independent. You know, Rock 001 is the 12-inch, and this is the independent Rockefeller era. And this really, I'm not sure people even now realize what an incredible moment that was for that independent label.
Yeah, I think like. It's crazy because anybody who got the record realized that the artist wasn't Jay-Z. The artist was Jay-Z featuring DJ Clark Kent, which is bananas. But it was like, if you look at the logo, it said Jay-Z featuring DJ Clark Kent. Bananas to me, but that's the way we put it out.
Yeah, but I mean, it's to me. What is that? I mean, you mentioned you wanted to sign him in Atlantic. How was that transition to, from him potentially getting a deal to him having, to them doing the label? And then there was a lot of people, obviously the label was, was the group efforts of a lot of people to make these records, right? So what was your experience during that era, kind of witnessing how it was all put together or participating, excuse me?
I think at one point it was, yes, I got him to agree. I got him to do these records. We're going to make these records. It's going to come out. Everybody's going to see that I'm smart, right? Like that, for me, it was, I'm going to show everybody the best MC in the world. And, when all the record labels fronted on us, we had to do it ourselves. But then now I'm going from a point of anger. I'm like, oh, y'all going to feel the wrath for this. So we were recording in a way that basically said, pardon my language, fuck all of y'all. That's the way we were recording. It was recording like, fuck all of y'all. And it became, we're just doing this for us. If you catch it, then you catch it. But if not, it doesn't matter, because what you're going to do is see that we see he's the best. You know what I'm saying? Whether you take the ride with us or you don't, it was fuck all of y'all. And after it was done, it was like, for us, that was a big party for us. It was like, yeah, we did it. Now we're just gonna put it out ourselves, and whatever comes from it, we make everything. You know what I mean? So it was really, and literally just didn't care. And like, it was so tough that I quit working at my record label job because I was like, how could you not sign this guy? You know what I'm saying? After we went to, they didn't let me sign him at Atlantic. And we went to every record label, and every record label had the most ridiculous answers. Like, and I was just like, what are you not seeing? And then once it came out and it happened, like I'm telling you, we went to all the labels, and I was so mad that I quit my job. Which had nothing to do with everybody else. Like, I quit my job and was like, fuck everybody. We're gonna kick everybody's ass. And then we did. And so it was really cool because when we were making it, the expectation was zero because we just didn't care anymore. It was just, we just making this so we could ride around with it. And everybody who understands what it is to be a hustler can ride around with it. And it turned out to be pretty cool. And we just didn't care.
I mean, you hear that in the when people say some of the best music is when people just make music for not for themselves, but for their group,
yeah,
right? For the
block
of people.
We made music for literally 27 people.
That's part of the reason it resounds so much with people, right? Is that it doesn't sound like it's beholden to anything except what you're gonna think is legit, what he's gonna think is legit, and what your friends are gonna think is legit.
And I think the best part about making those records with the attitude that we had was we don't gotta lie to you. We don't have to tell you some phantasmagorical story so that the label says, okay, we can put that out. It's like, we're just gonna tell you the truth. And you're gonna rock with it or you're not. Like, we would go to parties and be so arrogant and blasphemous with it that people just did not even believe that this could be real. We would go to parties and buy 20 bottles of Cristal, and people would go, do you know how much that costs? And we'd be like, yeah, we do. Because we ball harder than all of y'all. We would talk like that, and people would look at us like, that can't be real. And I'm just like, well, how do you get 20 bottles if it
I do remember like real? A giant trash bucket, like not trash bucket, but it was like nice, but filled with that size, filled with Cristal.
Yeah, and we did it from night to night to night. And it's almost like the way we did it, people did not want to like Jay in the beginning. They were like, no, they can't be that good over there. We can't like this guy. And that was cool too. Go ahead, you don't have to like it. One day it's gonna hit your soul, and when it does, you're gonna be like, yeah, we made a mistake. Every A&R made mistakes that year, and a bunch of them lost their jobs. And I was walking around going, remember when you hey, remember, didn't I you told me he sounded like, okay, it was, I swear to God, every record label offered me like vice president jobs and shit. It was hilarious. I was just looking at everybody like, y'all was so dumb. It's funny because before the record came out, the first person who kind of didn't get it hired me to be vice president of Motown. But before, I was like, yo, you got to listen to Jay-Z. And he was the guy who was like, you mean the skinny nigga on the boat? And I was like, yes. And he was like, I don't know, Clark. And I was just like, okay, but yo, why don't you come over here and run this A&R department? And I was like, okay.
As we move forward, let's talk about transition from, again, Jay-Z being one of the biggest Brooklyn rappers to another big Brooklyn rapper, your relationship with Notorious B.I.G. and getting sort of.
I think Jay-Z is the biggest Brooklyn MC, and Biggie's the biggest Brooklyn rapper.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and talk about your relationship with, getting around him, meeting him, and sort of developing your relationship, producing as well as DJing for him.
Well, I met him in the times when you were seeing that video of him on the street, rapping in front of the store. And, it was, shit, this guy raps his ass off. You know what I'm saying? But he wasn't my artist. My artist was Jay. But I was like, yo, he's serious. And then he wrote for another artist that I know that used to be at Fresh Gordon's house. And I was just like, yo, what he wrote for you is crazy. Like, this dude really is the deal. And then when C and Maddie C started to get at him, and it happened, like, his manager was Mark Pitts and Wayne Barrow. And Mark Pitts kind of grew up in the music business in my house. He used to be at my house every day. And, you know, for like 2 summers, I would teach him the business. And then when he got out of school, he went to Howard. So Puff was like, yo, manage Big. And then when Big's Reggae came out, it was like I had heard everything, because Puff, everything he made, he would call me, listen to it, play it for me. Like Andre Harrell would call me to his office, yo, listen to this, my nigga, come listen to this. And I would go listen and, you know, like what I'm gonna like, not what I'm gonna not. But Andre Harrell and Puff kept me around like that to hear whatever they were working on. And then when Party and Bullshit happened, I was like, oh no, he's about to be something. And then Mark, as the album started to progress, he was like, yo, I need you to do some shows with Big. And I was like, he ain't gonna want me to go on the road with him. He was like, he's gonna do what we say. So Big, which I already knew him, Mark says, yo, I'm gonna bring Big to your crib. And the same thing that happened with Dana happened with him. He just trusted that I knew what it was. And I was like, okay, how do you want to do certain things? I let him tell me what he wanted to do. And then it was like, well, what if we do this? And what if we do that? And what if I slip this in the middle of that? And he was like, yo, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. And we went on for the first few shows. They were a little rocky because, you know, he might not have remembered everything. But by the 5th show, we were like a super well-oiled machine, and it became, and then album coming out and we're going crazy, and then we're on tours all over the place. And of everybody who was on the tour or were on Biggie shows, I was the oldest. So I was older than the manager. I was older than the road manager. I'm older than the security. So I'm teaching these guys how to do their jobs on the road. So it's almost like Uncle Clark. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when you meet Little C's, he's gonna be like, no, Clark was Uncle Clark. He was older than everybody. He's the oldest motherfucker on the road. But I had tour history already. So going on tour with him, he was just like, I'm gonna follow your lead. And it just worked out. And the thing that happened at the same time is that we really became friends. So it wasn't like a DJ and a rapper. It was like my man Big, or I called him C-Dub. It was, and he called me the R. Look, but I was the R and he was C-Dub, and we were friends, and 95% of shit that we talked about had nothing to do with what we were doing. It was just friend type shit.
But what are some of your memories about how that comes together? Because that, you know, it was just, I just remember when that record came out, you know, of course there's 2 versions. There's this version, and there's the remix version, both yours. But it was like, it was just such a moment when that came out. And then the album, of course, I know you had a lot to do with the album too, but this track, I wonder if you could tell a little bit about how the track came together.
Well, we were on the road, and this is like maybe a year and a half of us being on the road, and me telling him, trying to convince him about Jay-Z. And then when he finally gets convinced, one day he goes, yo, you got some beats? And I was like, finally. Because I was like, I need to produce this guy, right? So we had a break, we went home, and when we came back, I gave him this tape. It's a tape that had a silver label on it that said DJ Clark and Superman Productions. And from the first beat to like the 10th joint, he picked like 6 joints. And I was like, but when Players Anthem beat came on, he was listening to it and he just was like, he was mumbling. And then he was like, yo, we gonna go home. And I was like, what do you mean we're going home? He said, we're gonna go make this record. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, bet. But then I turned to him and I go, yo, dog, you're not making an album right now. So why are we? He was like, we're gonna go home. We're gonna make this record. And right behind it was the beat for Sky's the Limit. He goes, and you got a whole list for me. And I'm like, hold that for you. Like, what are you talking about? I said, I already gave it to somebody. Right. And and he was like, I don't care whose it is, you got to get it back. So I made the call The guy who I gave it to acted like he didn't want to pay for it. So I was like, okay, it's Biggie's. But I was just like, when are you going to do this? Because you like hold it for me. First you say we're going to go home to do this record, but you're telling me to hold that for you. I'm like, okay, cool. We get back to New York, and 2 days later we're in the studio, and he's like, yo, the kids are going to rap. And I was like, what kids? And he was like, C's and Kim. And I was like, dog, C's don't rap. Like, what are you talking about? He was like, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. I'm just like, no, this is going to be terrible because he can't rap. And C's did not rap, but he put that verse together. C's went in there and did whatever he said, and we get Players Anthem. This was a Thursday. I put somewhat of a mix on it, and on Friday we pressed up acetates. Wow. And I went to the tunnel, and I gave an acetate to Flex, and I gave an acetate to Big Cap. And like, it's like giving acetates to dudes at a club is a hard thing to do, because it's like, do they play it and just believe you or not? So Flex didn't necessarily jump at it, but then Cap got on, and he was like, he put it in his headphones and he played it, and he was like, oh, Biggie. And the shit comes on, and the club is going bananas. He just keeps playing it back to back to back to back. And I was like, oh shit. Now we're there. LL Cool J comes walking through the aisle, and he's bopping all crazy. And he goes, yo, Clark, what's up? And I'm like, yo, what's up? He was like, yo, what is this? I said, it's new Junior Mafia. Who's Junior Mafia? Biggie, Lil Kim, Lil C's. He was like, who did this? I was like, I did. He was like, yo, why you don't give me a beat like this? I said, you had it first. Like, he literally had the beat for like 5 months and didn't move. Jay didn't move on it. Sauce didn't move on it. Like, I was just going like, and saying to him that he had it first, it was hard for me to say it because I gave everything to Jay first, but I gave it to LL first, and he didn't move. And then I gave it to Jay, and then I felt terrible. I was like, how did I give it to LL before I gave it to Jay? But I did. It just happened that way. But they didn't move on it, and Big moved on it immediately. And now we got this bumping in the club. He was like, you gave me that? I was like, yeah, it's on that silver tape that you had. I was like, it's the first beat. And I was like, it let me know that it's hard for rappers to hear things if you don't tell them what it's going to be. So, you know, but that happened. Clubs goes crazy. Junior Mafia's got a record. But now I'm looking at him like, dog, why did you tell me to hold the other joint? He was like, you gotta hold that for my album. I was like, your album, dog, this ain't going on your album? He's like, no, this is for Junior Mafia. I was like, wow, they don't rap. And it's a bunch of kids in the studio, and I'm like, none of them rap except him and Kleptomaniac. I'm like, none of these kids rap. He was like, don't worry, we're gonna make their album. And I'm looking at him like, wait, I'm not touching this. So I literally mixed almost every song on the album. I produced like 3 or 4, and every song I was in the studio for every song. So wow. What you see as Junior Mafia is me as an executive producer with Biggie and Un and Jacob. And
while we're in this about connecting, you know, your work here, because we got a question from Lovelisa. I want to say thank you. We're gonna move there now. What about getting Jay and Big together? Talk about the process of making Brooklyn's Finest. About getting them together and like this moment in time where it's, you know, the 2 top rapper and MC in Brooklyn are like on the same.
We're in the middle of recording Jay's album, and I'm in the middle of recording Junior Mafia. And we're listening to a beat tape. Big wants to hear more beats, and Brooklyn's Finest is on the beat tape, and it plays. But if we were in another room, and the room was loud, and beats were playing behind each other, and we're just talking shit, and he's smoking, and then Brooklyn's Finest comes on. I get up, and I'm running to the studio to stop the beat because I'm like, "Not you ain't supposed to hear this one." And he was like, "Yo," runs behind me. He got one boot on. He's tripping up the hallway, and he goes, "Yo, I want that." I was like, "Nah, that's Jay's." He goes, "Yo, you get this motherfucker everything." And I'm like, "He's my artist. What do you want from me?" He was like, "Nah, man, I need to be on that song." I was like, "Yo." And then I was just like, I would love that. but I didn't say it to him. But I was like, I can't promise you that, but if you come to the studio and wait downstairs, I'll see if I could make it happen, because I got to go to the studio to track the record anyway. So we leave out of Unique, him and C's downstairs rolling up. I'm upstairs tracking the beat. And in my heart, I'm just like, I just want to say it, but I'm just like, I don't know if I can just say, put Biggie on the song. So I track it. Jay goes in. He does a whole record. It's called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And in my stupidest moment, I go, yo, you should put Big on this song. He's looking at me like, I don't know him. And Dame goes, yeah, I don't know. We don't know him. And fuck that, because we ain't paying Puff no money. And I'm just like, but I know him. He was like, that's your man. I was like, yeah. He's like, and then Jay out of nowhere, he goes, well, if you can make it happen, we'll see. Mm-hmm. So I act like I'm going to the bathroom. The bathrooms at D&D studio are in the hallway near the elevator. I go down the elevator, I bring Biggie back up, and we walk in, and I was like, and they didn't even speak to each other. They just started laughing. And Jay looks at me, he goes, yo, you a funny nigga. And I was like, and he goes, play the instrumental. And I put the instrumental on, and it's running and running and running. And Jay's going, what he does to come up with his bars, he's just mumbling. And Jay goes in the booth and does everything that you hear. Like, this is literally 20 minutes after he just laid a totally different record. Mm-hmm. He goes in and does everything that you hear on Brooklyn's Finest. He did it 20 minutes after he made another record off of the same beat. And then he comes out and he goes, are you ready? And he goes, he's looking at me going, yo, what the fuck did he just do? I was like, I've been telling you for 7 months that he's the illest. Mm-hmm. I've been telling you that, but you ain't been listening. And I told you he don't write no rhymes down. And he was going, dog, he didn't write none of that down. I was like, no, he thinks the raps. He's freestyling. I'm like, no, he's thinking them, putting them together, and then going to do it. And he's like, nah, Clark, that. I was like, are you ready? He was like, I got to take this shit home. So, but from that moment on, Big never wrote rhymes down. Mm-hmm. He was just like, that was crazy. And then the night before mastering is when Biggie came and laid his vocals. This was like 2 months later. And I had to master and mix the record. I had to mix the record that night. So the next morning it got to mastering. And Jay was in the session and he left out. And then Big leaves out and there's no hook on the song. So I'm just like, guys, what are we doing? I need a hook. Scratch something. Jay kept saying, scratch something. And I'm like, yo, call Big on the side. Yo, Big, come back. Come give me a hook, yo. He was like, yo, Jay said scratch something. And I'm scratching every word, everything in the world that says Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And nothing works because the music has too much soul. Yeah. So I couldn't really scratch nothing on it. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know what made me do it. I've never done it again, but I just started writing a hook. Mm-hmm. And then I went in the booth and I did the hook in a bunch of different voices to try to make it sound full. And Damon Dash was there. And I was like, Dame, please, man, you cannot tell Jay I did this. Mm-hmm. And then next morning we go to mastering, or Dame goes to mastering, and he's got the song, and Jay's there, and Biggs are there, and the song comes on, and everybody's like, oh, this shit is fire. In my mind, I'm going, because if they find out it's me, it's not gonna get made. Mm-hmm. Because the joke in our crew was, you are a fucking DJ. If you ever rap, you're not in this crew again. And I was just like, I don't want to be a rapper. Trust me, that is not for me. You know what I mean? Because I would look at Jay going, if I was a rapper, I'd want to be better than you. And I don't think I have the time to figure out how to be better than you. Because my competitive edge was like, I would have to be better than Jay if I'm going to rap. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the record came, the record happened the way it happened. Maybe about a month later, Jay's like, yo, who was that? Mm-hmm. And Dame was like, that's Clark. And I was just, yo, you not no fucking rapper. I got killed for, but it was like, it's too late now. The shit's too good. Like,
So
come on.
all those voices are you? Because
That's you? That's what I asked too. That's the same question I asked all the
Yeah.
more.
If you, the funny part is, if you listen, you could be like, oh yeah, that's him.
Nice.
Everything, the way you from Brooklyn, the whole shit, Marcy, you don't stop, Red Style, well, you don't like everything. And I did not want to do it. I was scared to death.
It's a perfect Brooklyn record, but while we're on perfect Brooklyn records, I feel.
But wait, think about it. It's a perfect Brooklyn record. You had Brooklyn's best MC, Brooklyn's best rapper, Brooklyn's best DJ.
Yep.
Brooklyn's finest. It was Brooklyn's finest.
But can I ask you about when you say MC and rapper? Could I ask you to unpack that just a little bit, or how would you know?
A rapper can say something that's not incredible and make you believe it's incredible. An MC has to say something incredible. So Jay-Z said, I talk jewels and spit diamonds. I'm all cherry like a hymen when I'm rhyming with remarkable timing. That's incredible. That's literally incredible. Jay-Z said, Biggie said, the more I smoke, the smaller the Philly gets. That's not incredible. But the way he said it made you think it was 1,000 times better than it was. The rapper has the whole picture. MC has the lines of a lifetime. But I still look at Jay-Z and think he's the second best rapper, and Big is the second best MC. So they're 1 and 2 on both of my lists.
So
did that make sense to guys?
Yeah,
of course.
Oh, okay.
I just want to thank you for saving that record till Big was ready to make his record.
It's funny because that beat was Akinele's beat.
Oh, that's the other rapper. I was like, man, maybe another question for another time.
But it was Akinele's beat after Jay and Sauce said no.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
what are you gonna do, right?
Then when Jay hears "Sky's the Limit," he was like, "Yo, why you didn't give me that?" And I was like, "You had it first."
He said no. Yeah. But have you ever reflected on that record as like, it's a story about growing up in Brooklyn. It's Biggie telling a lot about aspects of growing up and the things he sort of had to go to.
It's his truest story. It's the story that's truest to him as a person before all the craziness. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like his most honest song. And when we were done, he was like that it was his favorite song. And I was like, that's my Grammy. Him saying it was his favorite song, I was like, yeah, I don't need nothing else. I don't need to win nothing. The guy who I looked at like the greatest rapper ever said his favorite song that he made is a song I worked on with him. I'm sorry. I'm good. I'm out of here.
All right. So I guess we should get to some of the questions here. So we have a question from Saida, if I'm pronouncing that right. When you seek out a record to make a beat, are you looking for something specific? What is happening in this process of seeking out a sample to use?
I've never, ever looked for anything specific. I just look for something to hit me in a certain way that can spark my creativity. I usually do want to feel the sample a certain way. I do want it to have something that feels somewhat soulful, so that, because to go all the way back to the beginning, I really love music. You know what I mean? So when I'm listening, I'm like, do I love the music that I'm hearing, and can I make it a little bit special to what we're trying to do? So I never look for something specific. I just look for something to have some feeling to it.
And follow-up question is your sneaker passion connected to your relationship with hip hop?
No, because I don't necessarily have a sneaker passion. I have a fresh passion, and that's connected to the streets. When we were young in my neighborhood, we didn't have anything. You know what I'm saying? We had nothing, and all we could do was get fresh. We couldn't afford cars. Like, sneakers were your car. your passport to a girl liking you was how good you dressed. So we were about being fresh. It wasn't about having a bunch of sneakers. I did learn young that girls like cleaner sneakers. So I always wanted new sneakers. And that just became part of the fresh addiction. So like, if you know anything about me, you'll realize it's not just the sneakers, like, because I don't just put sneakers on, I put the whole thing together. So like, if you see me with a brand new pair of Jordans, you best believe it's attached to something that I'm wearing. I'm not like these kids who just throw on their brand new sneakers looking crazy. You know what I'm saying? Wearing 34 colors just to be able to say they put their sneakers on. I'm like, nah, dog. If it don't work with the shirt or the hat or something, where you tying those colors in? Like, come on, at least do something here. So I'm a fresh addict. I'm not a sneaker junkie. Yes, I have a lot of sneakers, but I also have way too much clothes because I want to be fresh.
I think that's all for questions.
Yeah, and Pat, did you? We could give if this is the last chance. If anybody has
if anybody wants some questions,
has a question for Clark Kent, please put it in the Q&A, because we're gonna wrap it up, because I know wanted to send it back to Patrick to talk a little bit about the now.
Yeah. So, for you, Clark, what defines Brooklyn hip hop in 2023?
Well, I don't necessarily think there's a Brooklyn hip hop. I think hip hop is a culture, and I don't separate it by where you're from. It's a way of life. It's not a music. It's not a dance. It's not art. It's not the way you dress. It's not the way you talk. It's not the way you walk. It's a way of life. It's an actual culture. You know what I'm saying? It's not these pieces that belong to it. There's pieces that are living inside of it. You know, rap music. It's rap music. It's not hip hop music. It's the music that lives within the culture of rap. You know what I mean? So that's the way I look at it. I look at b-boying and breakdancing and pop locking and all of that as the dance that it's the art form, the art of dance that lives within our culture. The hip hop can't be broken up by Brooklyn hip hop and LA hip hop. And no, it's a lifestyle. It's a culture. It's breathing. You know what I'm saying? It's breathing. Like cultures are living things. You know what I'm saying? So it's breathing. And whenever somebody says things like sneaker culture, I'm just so like, dog, that doesn't make any sense, because sneakers don't live. Sneakers are just clothing. But hip hop is a living, breathing thing. You know what I mean? So I don't separate hip hop from where it is. Hip hop was supposed to be worldwide because it's a culture.
And we're gonna go to another question from OP. In OP's accent, just connecting. I guess this is sort of connected as somebody who's been doing this for so long. But how important is mentorship and passing music and history forward? Well, so I guess what this would be for you, Clark. Like, what to you?
It's extremely important, and the reason why I feel like let's just speak in context of hip hop, right? If we're not, let's say I'm one of these guys from the beginning of this culture that we're in, right? If we're not passing the music and the history of it forward, history is going to get lost, and you're going to have people who don't get mentioned because nobody passed the history on. You know what I'm saying? You're going to get people who get forgotten because the people who knew the history did not teach the history properly. You know, like whenever I meet a new artist and they're like, yo, I'm this, I'm that good, I'm the this, I'm the that. I'm like, yo, have you ever heard America's Most Wanted? Have you ever heard The Great Adventures of Slick Rick? Have you ever heard Raising Hell? If you haven't heard these things, you can't tell me you're the greatest, because that means you didn't do the work to become the greatest. You didn't do the listening. Did you hear Low End Theory? If you don't know these albums, you can't tell me you're going to be one of the great. It's impossible, because you don't know enough about what you're doing to make me believe that. You know, so I'm always like, please, let me show you something. Let me teach you something. Let me make sure that you learn something, because if you don't, it's going to go away. Hip hop won't go away. The elements that are in it can go away.
Right. Well, I guess we're wrapping.
Yeah. And thank you. Thank you.
Oh, no, we'll
Clark.
say
I
thank
gotta-
you, Clark.
Yeah, I gotta say thank you. Much appreciated. It's incredible, incredible talking to you, and always incredible to learn.
Marcia,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you have a question.
I have a thank you.
Oh.
I just want to thank you because this is full of great stories, great thoughts, great insights, great understanding. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. You need to know, like, I truly am humbled and appreciative, because you can ask anybody, and you chose to ask me. That means hopefully I've done something that to someone means something.
Well,
And to be able to be in that position is an honor.
so just a quick background on that. When Marcia and I first talked, she said, "Who, if we're talking about Brooklyn hip hop history, who would you like to have?" And I think by the time she had finished the word "have," I said DJ Clark Kent. It was the first thing. It was the first name that came to mind, just because it was like the 6 degrees of separation. It was just that you were involved in all of it in some way, and so we're very appreciative that it worked out and that you could come through. So thank you.
Beautiful night. Thank you. And thank everybody for coming. Thank you all for being here. Come to the next one, May 4th. The registration is in the chat. And I hope everybody has a great night.
Thank you.
Good night.